Hello and welcome to this week's video on My Hero Academia. This week I'm reviewing special episode 1 of Volume 3 of Vigilantes! Wahey! I don't know why I started to mutate in some kind of game show host kind of voice there, but hey ho, we move on. Let me know what you thought about this particular episode in the comment section down below. And whilst you're there, be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTube stuff that YouTube wants you to do, because YouTube is an increasingly scary place for small content creators. Support your local small content creator today. It will do them a power of good, because we are so close to breaking 100 subscribers. At the time of writing, we're at 99, so it would be fantastic to break 100 subscribers by the end of the year. Please, it would be very much appreciated, but until then, let's get into the review itself and start off, as we often do, with the positives. And the headline positives for this particular episode is that this was a welcome bit of backstory to fill a gap in our knowledge, with some fun gags and some decent character building moments therein. Note, when I say that this fills a gap, I'm not calling this episode filler. In fact, I'd argue that this episode, much like the OVA Save Rescue training, is something that really should be far more canon than the way that it is presented. This episode isn't vital information, it doesn't recontextualise our knowledge of this world or change our point of view of certain characters or how this world works in a mechanical sense. But it's a slice of information and world building that I feel that shoving it to one side in a way in which most people probably aren't going to connect with it, I will be blunt, seems pretty bloody silly to me. This is an episode which takes place immediately after the B episode, which saw B using her B powers to turn a bunch of innocent people into horrible, scary monsters. And this episode is dealing with the immediate aftermath of that in a wonderfully dry and official way. You know, I really did love that episode, and now we're finally getting the kind of more official turn of events after that. We have a bunch of pro heroes in their suits or casual wear being brought in for a big important meeting to discuss the true horrors of what really happened on that day. And the response from them, or at least from Endevor, is to see the whole affair, all those innocent people getting smashed to buggery and back, being hospitalised, as being a bit of an inconvenience and minor annoyance, more so than anything else. It's a case of them going, oh sure, we hospitalised them, ruined their lives, but you know, let's just pay for their healthcare and maybe give them a branded baseball cap and we'll be fine, it'll be reet, it'll be alright, you know, give them a t-shirt, sign a few things for them, they'll understand. Which, you know, is still a lot more than the Incredibles would have done for them, as I dare say that they just bitched and moaned about the entire thing. But sure, you know, we have Endevor here, and he is still being rather bitchy and horrible, because this is, of course, a prequel series. This is at a time and place where he still hated All Might more so than he actually liked anything. So here we have him, Endevor, at his still most insufferable level, or his most badass level, depending on the kind of person that you are and the kind of fan of him that you are. Or hey, maybe the reasons why he's so bitchy is because he's missing his favourite TV show, because let's be honest, as they mentioned in the episode itself, this kind of thing is just usually done on the phone, but they're bringing everyone together to have this big important meeting to say, hey, you know those people that you thought were villains? They were just normal people who were kind of possessed by a chemical, and when you were beating the shit out of them, maybe you shouldn't have ought to do that, and maybe we should take like a minute or two to, you know, just understand the situation a little bit, you know, maybe call this in to use the resources that we have to check to see whether this person might be on the cards as a villain and not just someone who's getting fucked over by some kind of creepy, scary thing. You know, maybe that's something we should be doing. But no, for people like Endevor, it's a case of being a mild inconvenience. They have to take a moment to consider their actions. Good lord. In this episode, we see pretty much all the teachers from UA, or rather the characters who would then become teachers later on in the main series, which is neat. I have to say that it does feel a little bit odd that they all seem to have joined around the same time as one another. But, you know, as seems to be the case in the episode, they just kind of gave the nod to one another. As soon as one of them got hired, they say, oh yeah, you should really hire this person. Then this person gets hired, and then that person says, oh, you should really hire that person. And then that goes on and on and on and on. Which kind of begs the question here in the case of UA, did they just have a bunch of teachers that just retired? Or did Nezu just go on some kind of big firing spree? Just going through every single person saying, yeah, well, Captain Chaos, you know, you've been a really great hero. You've been teaching the set 2 for the better part of 7 years now. But we've got this guy here that looks like he hasn't slept in a week, but he's a far more famous superhero than you. So, yeah, it's been great, but you're fired. Did you just do that for pretty much everyone? Or hey, maybe this is a point where UA... No, wait, no. UA wasn't getting started. We know that UA's been around for a while, so scratch that line of thought that I had spontaneously that wasn't in the script. Hey-ho, diddly-do. But, you know, back to the actual matter itself. And I know I'm going to sound like an absolute nutcase for saying this, but I have to say this because these are my reviews and this is how I feel about these things. But I really do love this kind of behind-the-scenes look that we get in episodes like this, where we get to see the more mechanics of superhero life and superhero culture and the superhero industry itself. Yes, it might be somewhat boring to have an episode in which the vast majority of runtime is just a meeting, but in a weird kind of way, I suppose I always just enjoyed being in meetings in a weird kind of way. But at the same time, when I used to have a lot of meetings, I was on a lot of stuff, so I just kind of faded away anyway and didn't pay attention. But anyway, I just really like these kind of meetings because we get to see a little bit more how the world works. You get to see behind the curtain. We get to see the mechanics of it all. It's stuff that you would never otherwise see. You know, in your other superhero series, you don't have these moments where you got the heroes in a room and saying, all right, you know that thing where you stop the bank robbers? Yeah, well, the whole thing about smashing up the cars. Yeah, we got a lot of legal cases coming through, a lot of people wanting to claim on that, so can you not do that anymore? You know, that kind of stuff. I really wish we'd see a little bit more of that, and in this case, we do get to see that. Even if it is connected with a more of a major plot point, you know. An episode like this, where something has gone wrong in the recent past, and they're trying to figure out how to deal with it in a PR sense, and then how they're trying to figure out how to make sure it never happens again, and how that itself can clash with the realities of superhero work. Because, you know, whilst Endevor is being a bit bitchy about having to take a moment to check all of this stuff, the reality, of course, is the simple fact that they don't want to be in a position where they're just beating the shit out of anyone that they think's a villain, only to turn out later, oh, it was just someone under a spell or whatever, and now they're gonna pay compensation to them. Like, I get it. I like that kind of stuff. I like that kind of angle. It adds a sense of reality to all of this. And it's something, again, you don't really see that much in the mainstream of superhero fiction. Now, with that said, I'm not advocating for some kind of office-based spin-off about this kind of stuff. I mean, I think there was a short-lived comedy series in the UK which tried to do something similar, but it was on ITV2, so it was probably shit anyway. But still, just getting to know this kind of things, how they deal with the aftermath of all this stuff, because let's face it, when Superman goes in, knocks the bad guys on the head, there's probably going to be a few more meetings than just, you know, shaking him by the hand and giving him a medal after it. There's going to be a few inquiries, there's going to be some court cases, there's going to be some, you know, legal recourse, just in case, you know, someone got some mud on them and it ruined an expensive bit of clothing, whatever, you know, that kind of deal. Like, that kind of whole area, boring for everyone else, but for me, I'm weirdly interested in it. I'm getting a little bit of a hint of that in this week's episode. I really kind of liked. On an unrelated note, this is an episode where we get a one-shot villain and just a brief appearance, and I have to say that you have a really neat design to him. It's a guy that's just an explosive. He's got a bomb for a head, and he's covered in dynamite, and his big thing is he's just going to blow up a police station. I mean, he has a self-destruction quirk. I don't know how that really works in the long term of it. I mean, is it a one-and-done thing? I mean, I should point out that when I say self-destruction, I don't mean in the sense of excessive drinking, substance abuse, or watching YouTubers that think being British is a personality trait. Again, I mean literally blowing himself up, detonating himself. Is this a one-and-done thing, or is it like that Pokemon in Pokemon which blows itself up, but it just kind of gets a bit dizzy and just faints? But, you know, either way, I mean, I don't think it really matters the long term of it, because one, he's a one-shot villain, and two, boobs save the day! Boobs save the day! Midnight use her boobs to save the day! Which I really didn't expect that to be the grand solution to this week's episode, but it was, you know? We get this really... I suppose that's the reward for certain fans, isn't it? You know, you get this really boring meeting, then all of a sudden, boobs! That's the way of it, you know, because, hey, maybe some people didn't realise that, you know, midnight was midnight, even though they said, hey, midnight, I didn't expect to see you here, dressing something that doesn't look like... No, 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 instead we had to get her boobs out to show boobs save the day! I mean, it's a fun gag. It's a fun gag that in this episode that we have the almost confrontation of who's going to try and take out the villain. You got Endevor, who's going to use fire on a guy that can explode and who's covered in explosives, which, you know, would be kind of a bad move because it would fucking explode. But then you have Eraserhead, whose power is to stop other people's powers, and he has that scarf that he uses to tie people up, which you think, oh, that's going to be the thing that saves the day. But then midnight comes along, suddenly, boobs, everything's okay. I mean, I don't object to the idea of it. I think it's a fun way to just kind of subvert the direction of it as a whole, but I hope that's what happened. We have this kind of interesting story, this backstory into the way this world works, the introduction of some of our future teachers becoming teachers. We get to understand about how the fallout of the bee thing the other week, and it all ends with boobs. But anyway, with all that said, let us get into the negatives. And this is something that I touched upon towards the start of this review, but I think it bears repeating in a little bit more focus. I think this is an episode which should be far more canon than it is. Yes, it's fine as a special. It's fine as this little thing that you have in a manga volume. It's fine as this little thing of, oh, we did this as part of a special Comic-Con-like event in Japan or America, whatever, and now here it is after the fact. Enjoy it. Oh, it also fills a few gaps here and there. But I really think that this is an episode that should be an actual episode of this series, just full scale. I'm not even talking about in the sense of an anime here. I think this could quite easily have just been slotted into the previous volume because that's when it was supposed to have happened. And it makes more sense to have put that in there than some of the other special episodes that they had last season. I mean, this is the one that's far more consequential. I mean, yes, it isn't really about Crawler, but it is about the wider world. And I feel that it's the kind of backstory stuff which, again, whilst isn't essential to the nature of this series, but it's the kind of stuff that, having read it would have felt a little bit conspicuous by its absence. Sure, we don't need to know how Eraserhead or Midnight became teachers, but knowing that the heroes weren't totally in the dark as far as all this instant villain stuff, I think is important. And I think that when it comes to make this particular series work, the Vigilante series work, you can't really have the pro-heroes looking totally incompetent, as that's a path that I feel a lot of similar series end up taking, and it just doesn't work for me. Like, yeah, not all superheroes are going to be really good guys deep down, but not all vigilantes are good guys deep down. It's only really a case of some happen to be genuinely good, as is the case with my main cast, and I don't really think that, certainly in the case of relating this to the main series, just having our main heroes from the main series just look like a bunch of yokels just going in flash, bang, wallop, and not asking questions at them time and place, really makes them look in a good light. So having an episode like this which says, hang on a minute everybody, we've been bamboozled here, we need to do things properly here on out, at least feels a little bit more respectful to those characters. But yes, as a whole, I think that if this really should have been, you know, put into the previous volume. Because, you know, if I look at the opening pages of my volumes, it says that the particular copy that I've got is the 4th edition of it. So it could quite easily be the 5th edition when you put that in for the previous one. Then just put the behind-the-scenes caption thing, as was the case ahead of this one, saying, oh yeah, this episode isn't really connected to the main series of events. It's in reflection to what's happened previous season, but hey-ho. Which I think should have been done, because this stuff is far too important to just put to one side. As I mentioned previously, it's like the OVA Save Rescue Training, which I did a review of a few weeks ago, which was the episode that introduced the idea of Shoto having problems with his father, which is something that would have been a great tease had it actually been in the main series, but it wasn't. It was in an OVA, which was released as part of a big comic event, and never really in the main series, which is kind of stupid, but that's a discussion for all of a day. And of course you can read my review, or rather listen to my review of that from, you know, just following the links. I'm sure I'll put a card to it by now. But with all that said and done, oh wait, got to do the overview. The overview itself is important, but I'm sure that by this point you kind of guess where I'm going with this. I really did enjoy this episode. I enjoyed the look behind the curtain and getting a clearer understanding as to the nature of superhero work. It's something that we don't often see in other series, and just getting a chance to see how the main cast, see how the heroes in the main series would be dealing with all of this, I think is great. I think that certain things of it could have been done a little bit better. I'm not sure that doing the whole thing of, oh, hey, I'm a teacher at UA, now you're a teacher at UA, and now you're a teacher at UA, really needed to happen, but, you know, aside from that, I liked everything. I liked the gag with Midnight towards the end of the episode. I thought it was a solid thing. I think it was a solid issue. I think it was great. Again, I think it probably should have been part of the previous volume as a mainline episode rather than an OVA kind of thing. But hey, that's just the way that it goes. And with that said, let us get into Comment Corner! It's time for Comment Corner, and our first comment from Big X1, who says, I liked Crawler's new power, and I hope that we see more of it. Thank you for the comment, and I have to say that I think that the power is, well, like I say in my comment, I think it's rather neat. I think that it could have been and should have been better presented, either being revealed in its own particular episode, or being given a little bit more focus. I mean, looking back and rereading that episode, I mean, it feels kind of a bit ambiguous as to how exactly the power itself works. You have the moment where it looks like there's some kind of propulsion coming from his feet, but then you also get the thing in the flashback where it looks like he's stepping on the air, almost like Pop Step would do. I'm sure that we'll end up seeing more of it coming forward, and it'll be better refined, and we'll get a better idea how it works. I will be interested to see with all of that. Next up, it's his name taken 8053, who I have to say, who has managed to leave a comment on every single Vigilantes video that I have done thus far. They have binge watched every single episode, which, if I had a sound effect for a round of applause, I'd give it to you, so I'll just do it here in the room and hope that he hasn't knackered up the recording. Thank you very much for all those comments, and this is their comment, which says, double jumping is still useful, even if it's just for a few moments. In episode 2, he did say he wanted to fly. The only one who now knows Koichi is the Crawler are people close to him, Makoto and his mom. Not the public at large, or the government, or the police. While the next two are specials, they still help build up the world of My Hero in a big way. Thank you for your comment. And I have to say that I do feel as though I was a little bit, upon reflection, a little bit too harsh towards Crawler's new power-up from last week. Part of that was just down to the fact that something I'm just a bit sick of is the power beyond things, but at the same time, you know, it wasn't really a power beyond thing, it's just him remembering something via muscle memory, which, you know, is a neat idea. I hope they go further with all of that, and it will be interesting to see exactly how the fallout of all of this goes in relation to his mother and Makoto learning that he is a vigilante and how they'll end up falling out with this. I have to say that this episode of the two from this week I did enjoy quite a lot, and I do feel that it has helped to build up the world of My Hero Academia in a little bit of greater detail. I'm interested to see exactly how the next one goes. I've had a brief flick through it. I might have seen something, but hey, I'm interested to see exactly where it all goes. With all that said, that's our comments, and that is this week's review. Thank you all for listening. Click the bell, do all the YouTube stuff that YouTube wants you to do, and that kind of malarkey. You know how this goes by now. With all that said and done, thank you all for listening, and see you next time. Goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!